Hei og velkommen til denne direktesendingen fra Med Israel for fred. Det er 15. mai. Det er dagen etter Israel ble 72 år etter norsk kalender. Så det er nok en gang grunn til å feire og gi tommel opp. MIF har allerede markert 72-årsdagen da den ble feiret Yom Ha'atzmaut etter jødisk kalender. Nå er det tid for å se på svært dagsaktuelle saker, og det mest dagsaktuelle er å se på de palestinske skolebøkene. Innholdet der er at for eksempel tredjeklassinger leser dikt om å utrydde restene av utlendingene, som altså israelerne. Flyktningene skal vende tilbake med våpen i hånd. Krev rett til å vende tilbake, slik at Israel blir borte. Israel er Satans tjenere, Israel er utslettet fra kartet, og slik fortsetter det. Med meg i dag har jeg Arik Agassi, som dere straks skal få møte. Han er forsker ved Impact SE, et institutt i Israel, som jobber for å se på hvordan skolebøker, ikke bare i de palestinske områdene, men i en rekke land i verden, dekker hvordan de følger UNESCOs standarder. So, hello Arik. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Hi, good to be here.
Tell us what happened in the European Parliament yesterday.
Yeah, so great news, really. Actually, I was pinching myself yesterday to actually believe this happened because, as your viewers, I'm sure are aware, the European Union is not usually the best friend of Israel, and usually takes a more Palestinian line, and sometimes even defends some absurdities on their part. And what happened yesterday essentially is the entire plenary, the entire 750 member hall of the European Parliament, which is basically the body that scrutinizes how the EU Commission uses its budget to implement its policies, had a vote on specifically concerns over hatred, violence, and incitement in the Palestinian curriculum, and lack of effort and success by the the Palestinian Authority, to eliminate this incitement. Now, the PA, or the Palestinian Authority, was singled out here in specific wording, including the specific fund, which is called the Agassi Fund, in this resolution that passed over 60% of the parliament, including with parties a little bit from the left, or members of parties from the left who defected from their party line after we've shown them the evidence, just like we've done in Norway, by the way, with you not so long ago, of how the Palestinian curriculum has deteriorated over the recent years after they published a brand new curriculum from grades 1 to 12, brand new books, with really the worst content we've ever seen since it ever started back in the year 2000, with elimination of all the previous peace agreements and processes with Israel, etc., etc. And the bottom line of this vote, in my opinion, is two things. One, it sends a strong message to the Palestinians that their closest ally in the world today, which has the most power on their side, which is the EU, which is basically a big world power, is publicly telling them that they have a problem with the aid that they're giving to this specific purpose. And the aid by the EU goes through the Agassi Fund to salaries of teachers and education civil servants. So basically, these teachers are being paid their salaries to teach hate and violence. And the legislation basically puts in place a legal and official declaration by the parliament, which can in the future be referred to, just like any UN resolution or any parliament decision that goes in the official records, where if something like this happens in the future, it goes against a majority of the European parliamentarians and the voters. So basically the people themselves, not the people who act in the commission, but the party members who people vote for, and the taxpayer money goes through that.
Yeah, that's why it was such it was a great work that you accomplished to do, like you also did in Norway, when in the 5th of December the Norwegian Parliament passed a similar resolution. So we Norwegians like to be in front of the European Union, and by your help and a little bit input from our side, we managed to be before the European Union this time. So it's we are really happy to have Arik Agassi. He's a researcher from Impact Esse with us today. If you have any question during this interview, you are free to put it on Facebook, and I will try to. This interview is now shared several places, and we already have more than 50 viewers. I may not be able to pick up all your questions, but please share, please comment, because it's so important that this topic is well known across the Scandinavian public. We also have Danish and Swedish viewers. And tell us, there was an incident yesterday where a party group was about to change their opinion just ahead of the vote, wasn't it, Arik?
Yes. I won't get into the nitty-gritty of the EU Parliament politics, but there's several parties that supported this resolution, some that were against, and there was a party called Renew Europe, which was kind of in the middle, and they were the swing vote. They usually decide how decisions work because they're right in the middle, and sometimes they split, sometimes they don't. And at the end of the day, there was discussions, from what we understand, even though we were here in Israel, having discussions with this party, but they decided to change their vote in the last minute to oppose this resolution because there were similar resolutions that were very vague in general, addressing problems in funding textbooks in the world or in general. But and I don't want to go into this for reasons that I won't enclose, but we did what we had to do to reverse that decision, and thankfully they supported the resolution, this party specifically, after they were kind of changing their mind again, and at the end of the day it passed. So this party did us, a very, very big service to Israel and to Palestinian children, who will hopefully, by the PA being pressured through this resolution, will be able to get a true peace education and not incitement to violence and martyrdom.
Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, Save the Children published a report about the situation for Palestinian children in the West Bank. And it was also, from the start, it was a totally one-sided report where they don't even mention hate education in Palestinian society at all, and they even cooperated with the head of one of the heads of the education department in the Palestinian Authority. And when this report was presented by the local or the national Save the Children leader in Norway, it was even more demonizing against Israel. Why do you think that international groups like Save the Children totally closed their eyes for how Palestinian minors are taught to hate Jews and to use violence?
Well, as we've all seen, specifically during this Corona pandemic, there's been a rise in anti-Semitism, and in my honest opinion, obviously we don't deal too much with NGOs. We deal directly with the nation states and research nation states curricula around the world. But from our experience, also working with diplomats who represent the EU, Norway, and other countries in the Palestinian territories, meeting them face to face, the only way they try to justify it is by ignoring the facts and ignoring the PA curriculum. Why do they ignore it? It's beyond my doubt. Some people say it could be clear, just pure anti-Semitism on their behalf. Others is postmodernism. That's also something that we get. We live in this postmodern world where there's the stronger side and the weaker side, and you will always want to defend the weaker side and ignore whatever facts they are. And we always say, no matter whatever allegations you bring on what the Israeli side does, and regardless if they're true, false, justified or not, that does not give any reason to teach materials like calculus, teaching adding and in fourth grade using martyrs and counting martyrs as examples instead of apples and pears. It doesn't matter. You can be in a conflict, you're using it with genocide in the background. Would that justify teaching kids math that way, or is that no? So there's a clear answer for me would be to anyone who saved the children would be, what? Everything you just described in this report is horrible that what Israel does, and I might agree even with some of the stuff sometimes that I hear that if I manage to fact check it and if it's correct, because nobody's perfect in this world, neither is Israel. But does that justify putting hateful material in textbooks? And we know the power of textbooks. Unlike social media, textbooks is the root of everything. Social media is the amplifier of the message. But just like as your viewers here, if they grew up in an environment and in school learning about tolerance and acceptance of the other, if they'll see a radical on social media, they'll flip a page. They won't resend that a million times because it won't affect them, because the textbooks are basically a barrier to that kind of radicalization that you see online. So it doesn't matter what every argument an NGO working in the Palestinian territories can say or not say about Israel. That does not justify not teaching according to UNESCO standards.
Sure. Just to let our viewers get more sense of the message that is communicated through the textbooks, I'll just use 1 minute to show them some examples in Norwegian. Så dere ser her, som jeg har vist dere før, Israel utslettet fra kartet, Jødenes tilknytning til Jerusalem, forties, Historieforfalskning om Jerusalem. Jerusalem vil spytte ut slagget av utlendinger. De som dør som martyrer får 72 jomfruer i paradis. So, Arik, I just showed them this example from a textbook in grade 9, where these 13, 14-year-old Palestinian boys are taught that if they die doing jihad, they will be rewarded by 72 virgins in paradise.
Right.
How do you think that affect their mind and thinking?
So, great question. One of our key arguments in this, all our reports on the curriculum, which came out, the new curriculum, which came out in 3 phases, was that there is direct and indirect, subliminal and direct messages that basically encourage kids, children, this is 9th grade, so 15-year-olds or 14-year-olds to sacrifice themselves, to go out of the house and say, wait a minute, this is what I'm going to get. Now let's remember for 1 second to put this into context. If you see the exact reference of where this example is, it's in grade 9, Islamic education, exactly in this or that page. So this is not a person sitting in a, let's say, small mosque in the outskirts in the desert where it's, a very fringe of society, this little radical group that doesn't reflect the masses. We're talking about a teacher paid by foreign aid, including Norwegian aid and EU aid and others, in class of Islamic education. Her salary is getting paid by that to teach this to 1.3 million children in public schools. So this is not a side, little step of something that, might not represent the public. So when a student sees the seal of the state, the symbol of the state on the textbooks, and we know how strong it is where it comes from the state, it's not a magazine, it's not a newspaper that's right-leaning or left-leaning, it is the state, and that's what they know has to be done and is the right thing to do. So if the state and the teacher, and everybody knows how much a teacher has effect on his children, on the class and children, not only the textbook, teaches this, the next day, this is what they're going to do. So again, there's a big difference between hearing something on social media or from an imam in a small mosque than learning it literally in public school and class day by day to 1.3 million children.
Exactly. And when you were here in Norway, I was surprised to see that what is called textbooks, it's really more leaflets that can easily be reprinted. Yeah. So if there is a will from the European side and or from the Palestinian side, it's really easy to change the content.
Exactly. It's very, very simple, and I'll give you a case study not related to us on the PA curriculum to prove to you how easy this is done. First of all, the way we get the textbooks is they're free to download online in PDF versions, and they're released usually a little bit before September, before the beginning of the school year. And it's basically a PDF, which is Acrobat, which is a software anybody can use. And if you're, a graphic designer, you can literally pull out an example and replace it. So what happened was in the PA, and we've noticed this, back in 2017, one of the first editions of the new curriculum in grade 4, women were portrayed as witches in Islamic education, and one of these examples, okay? Like it was an example, there was like a witch, and they had something about women relating to witches, not directly saying that all women are witches, but something of that nature. There were a lot of Palestinian women rights groups who came and demonstrated in front of the Ministry of Education for about a week. And the next year, that specific example on the same page, and we see it because we can compare the two PDFs, was taken out. So when there is a will, there's a way. Now, what we've heard time and time again from the Norwegian Foreign Ministry and from the EAS, which is the Foreign Ministry of the EU, is what we call constructive dialogue. This is the wording that we say. And this is a dialogue that we hear that when we show our examples to these people who will have day-to-day conversations with the education minister himself, literally sitting across a table, just like I'm doing in front of this computer right now, they might show him these examples. And I know for a fact that they did, even with our report and logo on it, despite the fact that we're an Israeli organization. And I know for a fact that they're not satisfied with this, but they're not willing to make the extra mile of putting some kind of whip or threat to get change, because this constructive dialogue, we brought this attention to the Norwegians and to the European Parliament in 2017, 3 years ago, and we've seen no change. We look every September at the same books themselves, and I can show you those exact same examples that you just presented to your audience in the exact same edition of the textbook in 2017 on itself, on the textbook itself, 2017. Sometimes, and I don't know if this is deliberate, they move the example to a different page or a different book. Not that much, but many times it's actually in the exact same spot and no change. So constructive dialogue has worked. And this is why part of our strategy, by the way, is not necessarily to embarrass these governments and go directly to the media with this. We gave them a chance. We started off directly with off-the-record meetings, one-on-ones with these diplomats, both it's sitting in the Palestinian territories and also in their capitals back in Europe, to show them this and to say, listen, this is unacceptable. You have to speak to the Palestinians to change this. Not only because you're accountable because of aid that's going by your own taxpayers to teach hate, but also because you have a duty to support the two-state solution and ensure that the next generation of Palestinian children will be ready to accept any future deal that might come by. It might not be Netanyahu or Abbas. It could be other two people. But if the roots, like we said in the textbooks, are not encouraging Palestinians to do that, then that pushes away the two-state solution. And once the governments didn't act, we had to take it a step further and start working with parliamentarians, right, who started legislating, like in the Norwegian parliament, like in the EU parliament, like in the UK parliament that we've been, to put pressure on the same foreign ministries. And we all know that these people in the foreign ministries, sometimes they have good intentions, but they have their own job to do every day, and they don't want to rock the boat, and here comes an organization and kind of rocks everything for them, and it's just like someone coming from the outside and changing your whole organization and your whole day-to-day work, and they don't want to deal with that, so they try to get away with it with different ways, like the Norwegians and the EU say, we don't fund textbooks.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't fund the direct printing house that prints these books, but you pay civil servants who teach it. You pay people who draft it in the Ministry of Education. So because you don't fund textbooks, then you're not accountable. So that's a very weak argument to use, and we actually sometimes we laugh when we hear it, because they know the truth and they don't have a better argument to use.
Yeah, I will take 1 more or 2 more minutes and present some more examples, because it's really important that people know what we are talking about. So please allow me 1 or 2 more minutes in Norwegian. Kjære seere, miffere, dere ser altså på mitt intervju med Arik Agassi fra Impact SE. I fjor høst så la de fram en rapport som viser mange grove eksempler fra palestinske skolebøker. Den norske avisen Aftenposten skrev at det var en undervisning som var en opplæring i jihad. Og MIF var med Arik og hans kollega i møter med flere partier på Stortinget, der vi da lykkes med å få et flertall i utenrikskomiteen til å komme med en sterk trussel om at norsk bistand vil bli stanset hvis ikke palestinske skolebøker blir endret. Kjersti skriver i kommentarfeltet på tide at det norske Stortinget tar dette på alvor, spesielt ved utenriksminister Ine Eriksen Søreide. Så jeg vil oppfordre alle dere som ser på nå, skriv i kommentarfeltet «Stopp hatopplæringen!» utropstegn. Skriv i kommentarfeltet «Stopp hatopplæringen!» utropstegn. Dermed vil du markere for venner og kjente på Facebook at dette er noe som er totalt uakseptabelt. Og når jeg viser dere nå noen flere eksempler, så vil du se hvorfor det er nødvendig. Jeg hadde allerede vist dere 9 eksempler. Til sammen har MIF oversatt 43 eksempler. Barn som deltar i jihad er sikkerhetsventilen i samfunnet. Det blir 8.-klassingene fortalt. Jihad handler om væpnet krig, blir understreket. München-massakren mot 11 israelske sportsmenn blir støttet som et forsøk på å ramme de sionistiske interessene i utlandet. Martyrdød og jihad er den mest viktige mening med livet. So, Arik, I just presented this example from grade 5, where the Palestinian students are taught that martyrdom and jihad is, quote, the most important purpose in life.
Yes.
So, whenever we see Palestinian youngsters attacking Israeli soldiers with stones or even terrorists, this is what they were taught.
Yes. I mean, to give you a little context, this sentence also is taught in Arabic language, right? So this is not a story in history about the conflict and maybe about a so-called resistance fighter who died. This is a story or an Arabic language textbook to teach grammar and punctuation, okay, and things like that. So they're using even direct sentences, and the most important thing in life is not to succeed, have a family, succeed in life, have a good income, do good for the environment or for your friends and family. The message is that the most important thing is to die and to sacrifice. I mean, this is horrible. This is child abuse. It's literally child abuse. And the context of teaching Arabic this way, basically teaching language, how to read and write and speak, is using the story, by the way, here. That example is from the famous the Fatah terrorist Dalal Mughrabi, who back in 1978, if I'm not mistaken, did the Coastal Road bus massacre, where she and a group of terrorists came from the sea, hijacked a bus, and killed 38 Israelis, including 13 children. So she's described as a hero and to teach Arabic. So there's a story about her, and then to learn the different vowels and punctuation and grammar, the students are asked about different values, and one of this obviously is the sacrifice is the most important meanings of life. So again, the heroes are not doctors, are not even Nobel Peace Prize winners. Even Arafat, who people who supported the Second Intifada behind the scenes and probably initiated it himself, they could have written, our biggest hero is Yasser Arafat, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, or a poet, or a doctor. And there's enough Palestinian heroes that are not involved in the resistance or in fighting Israel. None of them are mentioned. All these people affiliated with militarism are mentioned as heroes in the Palestinians, with the Palestinian textbook. So it's a big problem.
Yeah. So we have a lot of people commenting that they want to stop this hate education. And obviously, I'm personally and all the members of MIF across Norway and Denmark, we are really ashamed that our money is used to teaching others to kill you, Arik, and your family and all Israelis, basically. you should know that we strongly protest against this.
So we really, first of all, from the bottom of our hearts, appreciate any support that we get for this issue, because it's not only for us, but it's for the region itself as a whole. This region is, and with the Sunni states, we can go into a better direction with the Palestinians, regardless of the government or any government on their side or on our side. And this is the base to it. And with your help, we'll be able to do this even further. And I want to just bring into mind two things. One, try to put yourselves for a second into their minds. We're not asking like the Palestinians to, like Israel is asking the Palestinians or dictating to them, you have to now rewrite page 5 or rewrite page 6. Just like, Denmark will not dictate to Norway, or Sweden won't dictate to Finland how their ministries should educate their kids. But there's a big but here, and this is we say because curricula is each state has their own sovereignty, has their own narrative, own history, which is completely fine. The only thing we're asking for is that it meets UNESCO standards for peace and tolerance, which we follow and analyze, especially and even more so if the aid to the education sector of there is not even from your own taxpayer money, but the international community. So this is the only thing we're saying. Obviously, not Finland and not Norway has, the ability or the authority to tell this minister, you now have to rewrite this according to Norwegian thought. No. But you do have a responsibility to make sure that your aid goes to the right purposes and to put enough pressure, and not only through constructive dialogue, to make sure it meets UNESCO standards. That's the one thing. And the second thing I want to share with your viewers, and I highly encourage you to make as much noise of this as you can. Our efforts in the European Union, other than the vote yesterday, resulted in an official statement in April last year by Federica Mogherini, who basically is the EU Foreign Affairs Ministry, that because of our efforts, the EU is concerned with the Palestinian curriculum, and therefore they commissioned an independent EU report or review of the Palestinian curriculum. Obviously, because we are based in Israel and Jewish, and I don't know why does that have to do with anything, because the facts are the facts. The fact that I'm Israeli doesn't change the fact that they teach math by calculus in page 4 of their textbook. That has nothing to do with it. But obviously, and we know for their own purposes, they want to have an EU-branded report of the curriculum. Now, we don't know what this report is going to look like, and the report by the EU is supposed to be concluded by the end of this year. What I encourage your viewers to do is, because we understand there is an interim report with interim results of the PA curriculum, which is due and done by June 2020, essentially in 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now. This report on the PA curriculum is going to be classified by the EU. The EU intends not to share it with the public, and we have a good reason to understand that this specific interim report might meet more or less the conclusions of our report, and that's why they want to keep it off the record and classified, so to not embarrass anyone and not show the public of the people who are watching me now that actually not only Impact SC says there's a problem with the textbook, but an independent group called the Eckert Institute in Germany, who are analyzing these textbooks for the EU, found similar conclusions. And that's why they're intending to classify this report. And my encouragement to the viewers is to put as much pressure as you can on your constituents, on your parliament members, wherever you are, to ask your foreign ministries to put pressure on the EU to release the interim, and it's a specific difference between the final report, which is due at the end of the year, and this interim report, which is due literally in 3 weeks. And as much pressure as you could put to make this available to the public eye, either through parliamentarians, either through the media if you have any contacts or things like that, literally to ask questions, please do so. We're also going to start a campaign on this very soon, probably next week, approaching probably even journalists in Norway or other countries as well to reach out for comment on this. Are you going to classify this report, and why, and what are the methodology and scope of the report, etc.? This should not be a secret.
Yeah, that's very good, because in the Norwegian Parliament it was specifically reference to this report, and the majority of the Parliament asked the government to return to the Parliament when this report is ready. So it would be ridiculous if they managed to keep it away from the public eye. So we will certainly, together with you, we will certainly put pressure. I had one question from the viewers. Shasti asks, this education has to be contrary to human rights, and obviously it is. And maybe you can you mentioned the UNESCO standards. Maybe you could explain more in detail how the Palestinian education is contrary to the UNESCO standards.
Sure. So if you go into our website, www.impact-se.org, there's a specific tab called Methodology, where you basically see the UNESCO standards which we follow. It's very simple. One of them is no hate. So basically, pretty straightforward. Gender equality, economic prosperity, peacemaking is the ultimate goal to resolve conflict. That's very, very important, maybe the most important, because we always say, you can have a conflict between different countries for years to come, and you can speak about the conflict and about wars that happened between the 2 years, but what is the end game with this evil entity that attacked you throughout the years? Is the end game to try to make peace with them and leave peacefully, or is the end game to destroy and annihilate the other? So it's completely fine, and it's okay if the Palestinians in their textbooks, describe the reality and describe specific conflicts that they have with Israel in the past, but it has to follow with a peace education and teaching about peace agreements that they try to reach peace with this evil entity that they just taught about in the chapter before. And if that's not in, then that's the biggest UNESCO standard that they don't meet, which is peacemaking is the ultimate goal to resolve conflict. And then there are a few others like respect for the other, meaning anyone who is not from your own community. The other could be a different religion, different ethnicity, the other, basically anyone who is not yourself. And then there is also the internal other within the community, which we also follow. It could be people from different colors within the community, or Sephardic Jews, or Ashkenazi Jews, or Sunni Shia, everything that within the same community. And every single UNESCO reference that's in there, by the way, is based on a resolution that was decided upon UNESCO. So when someone says, who said that you need to teach according to this or that standard, all you have to do is go into 1966 when they voted on this specific wording, take it from this specific resolution, and all our analysis is based on declarations by the international community. Most of them, some of them are more recent, some of them are not. But it's based on that, so nobody can argue that we're biased with our methodology, because when you do research, everybody can say, you twisted your methodology to fit the conclusions that you're trying to reach. And just one word on human rights. Human rights is being taught in the Palestinian curriculum. There's actually full chapters about human rights, but they very smartly use teaching of human rights to demonize Israel. It's not just human rights about democracy and about freedom of the press and freedom of religion and these kind of human rights. They use teaching of chapters of human rights to give example how Israel, to demonize Israel, sometimes with blood libels and sometimes with using demonizing statements, not even just saying, factually. They don't even call Israel. They call it, the occupying power. That's in there, but and a lot of times they will say that human rights is there, but we say the human rights is there in some chapters, but it's actually manipulated even again to speak about Israel. So speak about human rights, but don't speak about Israel and mix it together if you're really honest about teaching human rights.
Yeah, exactly. There is another question, very good question from one of the viewers, and it's the same that we have experienced also when we present facts about the Palestinian school books. Pro-Palestinian voices always come up with this. But what about the Israeli textbooks? They are as bad. And in 1 or 2 minutes, I will have you answer that question. But first, I want to show a few more examples from the Palestinian textbooks, and then we will see if the Israeli textbooks have the same bad communication. So I will do it in Norwegian.
Sure.
Så dere ser altså på mitt intervju med Arik Agassi, hvor vi snakker om de palestinske skolebøkene. Arik og hans kollegaer jobber for å få bort jihad-budskapet og jødehat i palestinske skolebøker, og her skal dere få se noen flere eksempler. Femteklassinger ble oppmuntret til å følge i fotsporene til kvinnelig terrorist. Vestmuren ble fremstilt som muslimsk. Arealet av Palestina inkluderer staten Israels areal. Klassisk antisemittisk billedbruk i en skolebok for 11. klasse. Jøder blir fremstilt som fiender av islam. Jødene er korrupte. Brannbomber mot busspassasjerer blir beskrevet som grillfest. Og en blodløgn sionistene satt fyr på al-Aqsa moskeen. Så Arik, what about the Israeli textbooks? Are they according to UNESCO standards?
So we get that argument a lot, and just a few points before I go into what the Israel teaches. First of all, as an institute, we look at textbooks the same way, okay? And we cannot compare textbooks between countries because it's a different system. It's like comparing apples and oranges, okay? What we have to do is take the same UNESCO standards and put them on every set of textbooks and look at them separately. That's why you won't find any comparison reports in our textbooks and on our website. We have assessments of the Jordanian curriculum, of the Saudi curriculum, of the Syrian curriculum, of the Egyptian curriculum, and of the Israeli curriculum, by the way, which has 4 different sectors. So first of all, it's comparing different things. The second, and I'll get to it in a second about the content. The second thing, which I think is the most important, is that the international community does not pay a dime to the Israeli Ministry of Education to produce anything. Okay, so this has nothing to do. So if you have a say to the PA, obviously where there's the money, there you have a say. Just like where you buy something, then you have a say on what's in, and you're accountable once you're invested in it. And I'll end by saying about the Israeli curriculum that as an institute that's based in Israel, we research thoroughly the Israeli curriculum almost every 2 to 3 years when new books come out to make sure that the books that come out meet UNESCO standards. And when they do not meet UNESCO standards, we make a big media campaign and go to the Israeli Ministry of Education, which we've done in the past, in 2016, to condemn specific content which does not meet UNESCO standards. And it could be on the Palestinian issue, it could be on secular Jews or ultra-religious Jews, etc., etc. So when it comes to us as an institute, a research institute that analyzes textbooks, it doesn't matter what we analyze. We speak according to what we see in the facts. And on the Israeli curriculum, it meets UNESCO standards by far. And it's not perfect, okay? No curriculum is perfect, okay? But when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in the textbooks, and I'd be happy if you could show later a few examples that we've sent you in the past, Conrad, peace as the ultimate goal to resolve conflict is throughout the curriculum. Not only in history studies where you would learn about the Oslo Accords, Camp David, Annapolis, Y Accords, meaning on and on of pictures of Israelis shaking hands with the enemy, everywhere, visualizing it, not only in text but in pictures, but not only in history books, but also, in culture studies and things like that. When I say peace is the ultimate goal to resolve conflict, you'll have a song to call for peace with the Arabs. You'll have a whole chapter about Israel's declaration of independence, calling on to the region to come together. There's even talk about the Nakba. the word Nakba in Arabic, which means catastrophe, which is how the Palestinians view Israel's independence in 1948. They call it the catastrophe. Even the word Nakba in their own Arabic language is in the Israeli civics books for students to understand that for the other side, though for us it was a big victory, the other side was a catastrophe. Students are in Israel are taught that, you know, some of the Palestinians were expelled by force, and that's a direct quote. And that even goes sometimes against to the, you know, the regular Israeli narrative. I mean, I learned this in school that, you know, most of them ran away because Arab states told them to run away. But in fact, and we have to be honest to our viewers as well, some Palestinians were forced out of their homes in 1948. It wasn't a big number, but it happened. Just like Jews were forced out of their homes in the Holocaust and in countries of Arab nations before. And that's acknowledged in the textbooks. Not only that it is acknowledged, is a Palestinian presence in the land as Palestinians before 1948 is taught there, about Palestinian newspapers that came out in 1920, about Palestinian peoplehood, not saying that this is an invented nationality and they were first Arabs. Even that is in the textbooks. And if we want to do a comparison, the Palestinian textbooks have nothing to do with not about Israel's right to the land, but any Jewish presence in the land of Israel. Not in the past during the kingdom of Judah, and not in the present, not about Israel's establishment. Nothing. So we're basically aliens that came out of nowhere and took their land. While in the Israeli curriculum, there's also talk of a little bit of dual narrative. There's a question, for instance, in one civics textbooks, which you might want to show, where there's a picture of refugees leaving their homes in 1948 with all their stuff on their backs, and the question reads for the students: imagine you're a Palestinian or something of this nature. I might not be quoting it correctly. Leaving your home in 1948. Express how the hardships of this picture portrays to yourself. Now, you know, Israel shouldn't be. We're not perfect, but we meet UNESCO standards. The only three problems, I would say, with the Israeli curriculum. One is the Israeli curriculum is divided into four sectors, which is the state curriculum, which is the regular public schools, the state religious, which is about 20%, the Arabic language one, which is another 20%, and the ultra-Orthodox curriculum. The ultra-Orthodox curriculum, which is a very minority, it's about 10% of the kids who go to these schools, that's where we issued a report and did find a lot of problems. They don't incite, meaning they don't incite to violence, but they put walls against them and they around them, and they don't do acceptance of any other. They don't teach math, they don't teach English, and basically everyone who is not like them is, you know, in other words, the enemy. Not that you need to attack the enemy, but be afraid from the enemy. Don't be like them. Don't involve in society. So we told the education minister, listen, these textbooks are very problematic. If this community wants to go into the workforce in the future years or be part of mainland Israel and not even be anti-Zionist, then this has to be changed. So that's one problem. And the two other problems with the Israeli curriculum, and some people wouldn't call them problems, but again, we show what's in the text. We don't defend Israel because we're Israeli. The other two problems in the curriculum, one is we found them a little ethnocentric, but again, curricula of nations tend to be ethnocentric because it's the state who are writing them, so there is ethnocentrism in it. But again, I think Israel as a nation, we've been around for 70 years. We have a very strong democracy. We can tone down a little bit of, you know, the ethnic pride. We're in 2020. We're a liberal society. We have, you know, LGBT education. We're in a position where we recommend a little bit to tone it down. And the other thing is victimhood, and again, this is also arguable because of the Jewish history of being victims, Holocaust, or being, you know, oppressed, and throughout the years, basically, a lot of the narrative in the Israeli curriculum is a kind of like a victim narrative, which is, again, in my opinion, a little bit legitimate, but you can tone that down a little bit here and there, and we're seeing slow progress even in those two things that I just mentioned throughout the years, especially since the year 2000, it became way, way better. And we're actually issuing a full report on the Israeli curriculum with 100 new books that came out since 2016, a 4-year project that's going to come out probably in September of this year, mapping out how Christianity is taught and how women are taught and how the LGBT community is taught, and obviously focusing on the Israeli Arabs and the Palestinians in the land of Israel.
Very interesting. Arik, I really appreciate that you had the time to come on today. Before I let you go, maybe how has the lockdown worked for you and your institute? And
yeah, so I mean, we had a pretty serious lockdown. I think we were lucky that Israel acted pretty fast on pretty harsh measures, very, very quick, which people were surprised about. But I think that because it was so fast to close the borders, and because Israel is a country that's kind of isolated, so it's unlike Europe where you can Schengen and just drive everywhere. Here the borders are controllable. When they closed the borders, it helped, and it also a little freaked out the community, which kind of locked themselves down and were very aware of the situation and cooperated with the authorities. It was very tough, especially for parents with small children who, not even school, but I'm talking about kindergarten, stuff like that, who also like to be outside and take out energy. That was very tough. And for the Institute, thank God, we deal with research, so this is stuff that we could do from home. But I have to say that it looks like that things are getting way better over here. And people are going back to work, not in big numbers, but people are going back to work. You can see more people on the streets. And it kind of feels like we're really at the end of this. And hopefully, the worst is behind us and this will not happen again. But we're ready to deal with all the issues that we deal with full speed ahead.
Yeah, very good. Before the last question. Do you think that jihad and hatred of Jews, anti-Semitism, will disappear from Palestinian school books?
It's a great question. Last year, I thought they would change. I thought we put enough pressure, and I was wrong. This time, specifically because there's this EU review, which the Palestinians are aware of, that now not Impact SC is looking into their textbooks, but another European body. I hopefully think, and I want to be very careful, I don't want to predict too much, but I think that in September we will see changes in the PA curriculum. I don't think that it's going to be a mass reform that we expect it to be to make it meet UNESCO standards. I think what the PA will probably do is change the very, very much debatable ones, maybe like the examples in science and math, which, there's just no reason to teach science and math that way. Maybe some of those will take it out and then they'll say, yes, look, we changed this, but then keep a lot of the other stuff. So we're going to be ready to analyze in September the new curriculum and flag two things. One, the examples that were taken out, and say, here's how you can, how they said, don't touch our curriculum, it's a national issue. Obviously, it's not a national issue. Look how they took it out, and that could be a good case study to show how they could take out more, number one. And number two, we will flag what they did not take out and do a full analysis of the full 200 and something books, which is going to be a tough job to do. But we're going to map everything, what's in and what's out. And in my opinion, for the first time, some stuff is going to go out, which is going to signal that our pressure, also through your help, of course, is helping. But I don't think it's going to be enough to meet the threshold that meets UNESCO standards, and therefore our work still needs to be done strongly and send a strong message.
Thanks a lot. One viewer says, thank you for sharing all your knowledge with us. Looking forward to the new report in September.
Pleasure.
On behalf of all the viewers, thanks a lot for coming, and remember to wash your hands.
Yep.
And don't touch your face like I just did now. And Litraut.
Litraut, thanks for tuning in, guys, and taking time to listen. Bye.
Bye. Da skal vi fortsette sendingen litt her. Før vi går videre med nyheter fra MIF, så vil jeg bare vise dere. Her ser dere Facebook-sida til MIF, ikke sant? Og hvis dere da trykker på denne knappen her, Her ser dere først og fremst at det står live, og det betyr at vi fortsatt holder en live sending gjennom siden, men hvis dere trykker på denne knappen som heter følger og skifter fra standard til se først, da vil dere se mer, da vil Facebook passe på at dere ser mer av det som MIF publiserer. Den knappen som dere ikke må passe på at dere trykker på, det jo slutt å følge, det liker vi ikke. Men skift gjerne over, hvis du på slutt å følge, så går du til standard, og så eller går du over til se først. Og varsler også da viktig å få fram, få hekt på. Slik at når direktesendinger fra MIF starter, så vil du få varsel. Det setter vi veldig stor pris på, slik at vi kan få med oss flest mulig seere. Dette en god måte å kommunisere med dere på. Ser fortsatt at det mange som følger sendingen, så det flott. Skriv gjerne i kommentarfeltet hvor du følger fra. Vi så tidligere i sendingen en som skrev at hun fulgte sendingen helt ifra USA, Chicago-området. Veldig hyggelig hvis du fortsatt ser på, Vanessa. Jeg var i Chicago for 2 år siden, og det en nydelig by. I hvert fall den delen av byen som jeg besøkte. La oss se litt på de siste dagers nyheter. Og vi tar det sammen her. I Tyskland så det nå blitt fengsel i 3 år. Strafferamme for opp til 3 års fengsel for å brenne israelske flagg og andre flagg. Israel forbereder seg på hetebølge. Ja, nå i helgen kan det bli opp til 43 grader i Israel. Jeg vet ikke, skriv gjerne i kommentarfeltet hvor mange grader du foretrekker, men 43 grader ikke det som passer aller best for min del. Selv om jeg bodde et par år i Australia, og da kunne det bli opp i de temperaturene. Man venner seg til det når man bor der, og temperaturen gradvis stiger utover i sesongen, men det verre når man da plutselig kommer på besøk. Så ser vi at i går så la vi ut en sak om denne behandlingen som EU gjorde i går om palestinske skolebøker. Og bildet til saken jo da av Arik Agassi, som vi nettopp har intervjuet. Her det da moren til en barnemorder, drapsmannen av Rina Schnerb. Hun sier om sønnen sin at hun stolt av å ha født en slik helt. Hvis du vil ha et foredrag om Israel og folkeretten, så kan du gå inn i denne saken. Ragnar Hatlem holdt et foredrag for MIF på onsdag kveld om hans nye bok, Palestina, Israels historiske og folkerettslige legitimitet. Det foredraget ligger på YouTube, og det ligger på Facebook, og du kan lett se det. 40 minutters viktig informasjon. Så til dere som ikke medlemmer av MIF, så vil jeg bare nevne at denne måneden så har MIF et spesielt introduksjonstilbud, der du kan gå inn og bli medlem og motta en bok som premie. Da trykker du her, bli medlem, eller på dette banneret, bli medlem, og da kommer du inn på en side der du kan registrere deg, og det håper vi jo virkelig at du gjør. Det bare MIFs medlemmer og givere som holder hjulene i gang. Og det et enormt behov for en korrigerende stemme som MIF i den norske Midtøsten-debatten. Så vi setter utrolig stor pris på dere som har fulgt denne sendingen i dag. Vi runder av nå. Men få med dere mitt direkte intervju med Israels ambassadør Alon Roth omtrent klokken 12 på tirsdag, førstkommende tirsdag 19. mai, og onsdag 20. mai så blir det Zoom-møte med Einat Wilf og Adi Schwartz, som er forfatterne av MIFs nye bok, Krigen for å vende tilbake. Det er et foredrag og en presentasjon som du absolutt vil se, og det vil også bli mulighet til å stille spørsmål til forfatterne. Så da ses vi på tirsdag klokken 12. Da blir det altså direkte intervju med Israels ambassadør Alon Roth, og jeg håper vi kan få rekordmange deltakere, og at dere er flinke med å stille spørsmål underveis. Vi snakkes.